The Young Turks 14 years.
Welcome back. You're watching Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship. Now, the Indian startup ecosystem appears to be in a shakeout mode with frothy valuations and funding drying up. But that shouldn't be a bother for companies focused on building solid businesses. That's what Ravi Adusumalli of SAIF Partners believes. Deep Kalra of MakeMyTrip.com caught up with him at the India Internet Day and found out if there's a harsh winter ahead and what Ravi's top bets are for 2016. Here's a slice of that conversation.
Ravi, for those who don't know, is based in the US, but he comes here a lot. There was a time he used to make 12 trips a year to India. I think after kids, he's come down to 8 or something like that.
I book all my travel through Make My Trip.
Yes,
so
thank you.
He knows exactly when I'm here.
That's how we are. You know, that takes care of 25% of our business, and we have three other VCs, so that's how we make our money. But do you ever think? I mean, you know, if you were based here, would it actually be a good thing? Like, could you have done even better? Do you miss out on stuff because you're not here personally?
I don't think it's a disadvantage, primarily because I think there's something to be said be slightly removed from the market. And I think that I always find India to be a very sentiment-driven market where it's almost feast or famine. 6 months ago, I guess 8 months, 9 months ago, India was going to be larger than China very soon. And now people are saying that nothing's working in India, everything's slowing down, everything's going to shut down. It's very bipolar. So I think not being here sometimes is actually an advantage of saying, okay, well, you can kind of, not be as affected by the sentiment in the market today.
So just changing the tone, everyone's saying that this is going to be a really harsh and cold and long winter. Maybe not very long, but very sharp winter. Tough times are here, I think, since the last couple of quarters from a funding environment point of view, and they're going to stay on, is what we are hearing. But help us all understand your view, and which is probably, based on the SAIF Partners' view, your LP's view.
You can either have pain through discipline or pain through disappointment. And I think that this is a year that there's going to be pain, but it's going to be driven by companies building more discipline, getting more optimized in terms of their spend, stop selling dollars for 80 cents and making it back on volume. It doesn't work long term. Eventually you have to start moving up and doing, I think, just being more disciplined in terms of how you spend your capital. It's much harder to raise in this market. So I think it will be pretty tough, probably for 6 to 12 to 18 months, somewhere in there. I think a lot of folks that were just growing very rapidly through kind of the easy way out will find it much more difficult to sustain that. But I think that that's good for entrepreneurs that are really focused on building good, solid businesses, because it enables a better entrepreneur to win. So
a lot of VCs, sometimes we feel as entrepreneurs that there is a herd mentality, which is if you go and meet 5 VCs, you'll probably get 4 no's or you get 4 yeses. Like it tends to be fairly binary, like everyone's really seeing the same thing.
I think your point in terms of investors in India generally looking at global comparables is fundamentally true. If you look at the companies that raise the most money in India, most have been driven by the fact there's X of China or the Y of the US that's worked somewhere else, and that is largely true. I think that it's twofold. One, I think that because India is a difficult market, because it takes a long time for companies to scale, there needs to be that hope that there's a very large outcome. And if there isn't that clear comparable, I think there are companies that are getting funded with that clear comparables, but the amount of capital they can raise and the valuation they'll get will be dramatically different. I think that if they're going to prove something unique and different that's fundamentally very Indian, they have to be able to do with less capital.
Okay, what have been your biggest learnings, 13, 14 years of investing in India?
I think they're pretty obvious, I'd say. I'd say one is that really finding that founding team that is so passionate, that has that never die attitude, that they'll just keep going and keep going and keep going, and that's because it's a hard market, as you know, more than anyone else. It's just a tough market. It takes a really long time to build scale. So you need someone that says, I'm going to do this for the next 10 to 15 years of my life. I think the second thing is that, kind of the whole, given the prior question in terms of this has worked somewhere else, therefore work here. That was much easier to do 10 years ago when there are very large companies globally, and then people would say, okay, this is definitely going to work here. In the last 2 or 3 years, that timeline got so compressed, I would say that people were just chasing ideas that maybe got funded in China, maybe got funded in the U.S., and those models were far less certain to succeed. And I think we've made this mistake multiple times, as a lot of funds have made, in terms of saying, okay, well, maybe it has a decent chance of working here, and really didn't do the ground level diligence we should have done, saying, is this actually a viable opportunity in India?
If you had to do it all over again, what would you change?
I think the biggest change I'd probably make is that we started Invest India in 2002, but we didn't start really building a team until probably 2011. We had a couple of folks, but it was relatively small. So I think I would have accelerated that and moved up probably 3 or 4 years in terms of building a larger team earlier on.
India doesn't seem to produce the best product companies. There's this big lament that we're still lacking in product. What's the reason?
Consumer-based businesses, it's fundamentally easier for entrepreneurs to raise money from venture capitalists if there's a clear global comparable. So that's the easier way to go, I think, number one. In terms of enterprise businesses, the reality is the market's very, very small. So I think you have to basically build for another market, which is very challenging in a lot of ways. But people like Freshdesk have done a fantastic job, and I think I think that you'll see a large wave of capital move into SaaS over the next 12 months that will create hopefully a dozen more Freshdesks. So I think I actually have a lot of confidence there'll be, and so we've actually started investing more actively in SaaS in the last 6 months. And I just think the quality of product coming out here actually is very good on the enterprise side.
Excellent.
And I think that the cost of sales is significantly lower here from an inside sales perspective. So I think that'll be one big wave that I think that will get funded quite actively, which will lead to larger outcomes, I think, as well.
So that's a perfect segue into probably my last question, which is SaaS, hot sector. What else would you really just say, call out of what, just there could be people who are pivoting, changing, looking at other opportunities. Which would be the other few hot areas that probably we are underpenetrated, or we don't have enough good companies right now we should be thinking about?
I think I've always thought gaming is an area that has been very interesting but hasn't worked in India yet. And I think that if you look at gaming in China, you have probably $5 or $10 billion plus companies that are just like Tencent's a massive gaming company essentially at the core, and you have several examples. There's very, very large companies there, and it hasn't really happened here yet. You've had some rummy examples, but nothing really sizable. And I think that now you enter India where the first 100 million people speak English. After that demographic drops. The first 100 million people are very comfortable playing English-speaking games. And now you're going to see that next wave of people developing games for the Indian ecosystem that are non-English based or non-cultural Western based. I think that gets really interesting in terms of can you find social or content or gaming companies that are developed for that next billion people.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this show. Do tell us what you thought of our episode by writing into us, youngturks@network18online.com. That's our email address. Facebook us or tweet me. My Twitter handle is @Shireen Khan. Till next week from the entire team, goodbye and many thanks for watching.
The Young Turks 14 years